All right, everybody. Today we got Melody Hellfire Popravak. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes, that was most people mess that up. Good job.
Yeah, okay. Spot on. Is that like Eastern European or something? Or like what is that?
It's Croatian.
Croatian. Okay, got you,
Yeah,
got you.
that's south of Yugoslavia. Yeah, it's like some people would be offended by this, but maybe if an Italian and a Russian had a baby, it would be a Croatian.
Yeah, see, when I think of Croatia, because I'm an MMA kickboxing guy, I always think of, Mirko Krokop.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah, that's what I think.
Croatian sensation.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, he was something else. So I got like I was saying, I got a few notes, but try to keep the conversation pretty casual. So first, because you're from Florida, right? Originally?
Yes, I grew up in Florida, and in my early 20s, I moved to Brooklyn. So both are have been an influence on me. I lived in Brooklyn for 11 years. So
Okay.
really at 50-50 time of, the amount of time in each state.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah, really, Florida and, New York City are both like big fighting places. I feel like, you can name a million fighters that come from both of those places, especially Brooklyn has a long, boxing history and everything.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess just from the beginning, just kind of tell me, you started off in Florida originally. Kind of just tell me what was your life like, from sun up to sundown? What was, the early days like for, Melody?
Well, growing up in Florida, I mean, I played every sport growing up. I've always been an athlete. And I think with a lot of not all, but because that's a generalization, but most of the female boxers, you'll find they played another sport and kind of wanted to keep going with something. So mine was softball and travel all over the country, practice every day, travel ball, then a tournament on the weekends. So I was kind of a goody goody growing up until I hit like 17, 18. Then maybe that changed, boys, whatever, changed a little. But yes, and obviously just playing sports outside, used to the climate down there.
Right. Yeah. I'm sure that is. But because you kind of, you said you were kind of like a goody goody until you got, a little bit older.
Yeah.
Because I had seen, when I was doing research on you, I know you said I had seen where you said, you kind of had like a wild side growing up too. But we'll kind of get to that in a minute. I really wanted to, because I know you said you played a lot of sports and stuff growing up. So, but I think I saw somewhere you were like a D1 volleyball player or softball player.
So for softball, yeah, I went to Boston University. I was recruited by a lot of different schools, but honestly, at that moment, I wanted to be a National Geographic photographer at that moment. Of course, you don't know when you're 18 what the hell you want to be.
Yeah,
but,
not at all.
but so Boston was more of the art school that had the strong communications program. So that's really why I went there. It wasn't a huge sports school, I guess you would say.
Got you. So you really prioritize like the education benefits, that you got from being, such a good player, pretty much.
Yeah, and it has really helped me out having gone there. So it paid off. Yeah.
Most, a lot of athletes, especially on that level, they go to college for the sport. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like, yeah, let me go do the little classes, but I'm really trying to do this, But that's good though that you actually, prioritize the education part of it.
Yeah, I was good at school too. So it was kind of like, what do I pick? The good school or
Right.
good sports team. I think South Carolina was one that was recruiting me, North Carolina State, a few
That's a
Florida
good deal.
schools. But I chose photography. I going back, I might not choose that way. It was real cold up there too. So
Yeah, the boxing. Yeah. Um,
yeah.
I guess I don't know. Do you feel like that kind of? I'm not trying to jump around too much, but do you feel like that kind of? Because when I'm more of like on the MMA kickboxing side of things, but I'm still a huge fan of boxing. Do you feel like, like you said, you were always kind of like a smart kid, smart person growing up and things like that. Do you feel like, because, boxing, it really is like when you start training it, you realize why they call it like the sweet science. You know what I mean? Like it really is a science. Like, do you feel like that translates in the ring at all? As far as like your fight
Yeah.
IQ? Just,
Yeah, I've learned actually it's a huge advantage. And I think any combat sport, you could say that for to be a thinker and to be really analytical, but, be able to pull the trigger too. Yeah, it's really helpful. Like even just the having the natural intellect of like to look up your opponent before you fight and see what their habits are. People won't do that.
yeah.
and
Yeah, a lot of
I,
fighters don't watch film or anything on their opponents. They just go into it.
yeah, I study and I swear I've logged on to, I've seen, I knew I was going to face a girl in a tournament. I see on her Instagram, I know she knows she's facing me, and I see her practicing throwing a right hand over the jab. I'm like, okay, obviously that's for me. Why would you
Right.
post that? So I think, yeah, having, just the wherewithal to think about those things is
Yeah.
an advantage. What about you? Do you do that? Do you study film?
Me, I don't, because I'll be honest, I've never like officially competed. I've had like a lot of smokers and stuff like that, you know what I mean? I've never officially
But
competed, but I know that some of my smokers, yeah, if you got stuff on the internet, of course, I'm gonna, capitalize off of that, like why wouldn't I? That's,
you're putting it right there.
yeah, that's free game right there. Like, why wouldn't I, And I definitely, like I say, because, it really is boxing, especially even more than MMA sometimes, I feel like. Because, boxing has had at least probably what, 150, 200 years on MMA, modern MMA as we know it. Um,
Yeah, as we,
so they've had
yeah.
a lot more time. You guys have had a lot more time to like really figure it out. Whereas MMA, we still kind of watching it evolve. You know what I mean? Whereas like boxing, of course it's always gonna evolve and stuff, but it's been done for so long, like it's kind of figured out a little bit. And it really is a science, every little angle, footwork, everything. It really is a science.
Yeah, I do like how I've thought about this a lot because there's less striking options in boxing, but I think I don't know. I've never done MMA, but you really when you're in the ring think about the energy that the way you're imposing on the person. And yeah, it's really psychological. And I wonder if it's, I guess both are probably, right? Less striking options, I guess you have to resort
Yeah,
to.
you got to be a little bit more, because like with MMA is one of those things where it's like me, I'm more of a striker, I'm more of a kickboxer, but if I go up against a
Mhm.
wrestler, I'm cooked, you know what I mean, or I could be cooked, you
Yeah.
know what I mean. Whereas like boxing, you have to know how to box. Like there's really no way around unless you're like a Deontay Wilder or something, you can knock everybody out, but that's not most people.
Yeah. I mean, we all hope once we start punching things that we find out we have
Yeah,
this magic eraser. A lot of easy nights, but I can't I tend to be heavy-handed. I do hope I find out that but
have
women are,
that magic touch.
yeah, but we have 2-minute rounds too, so with the female
Right.
fights, harder
Yeah,
to get a knockout.
even for the pros, you're 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Actually, amateur's 3 and pro is 2. It doesn't make any sense.
Maybe it's because I don't know, less and I don't know, no protection, I guess. I don't know. That is kind of weird though. I didn't even know that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, a few of the most prominent, like Amanda Serrano. I don't know if you know who she is, but she's a female boxer. She's only accepting 3-minute round fights now by contract because we're just trying to get that changed. It's
I,
like an old rule.
yeah,
Yeah.
I got you. I got you. Yeah. And I'm gonna get into, a little bit more in that, here in a minute. But I do want to ask, was it? I always ask everybody, people that come from other sports and the combat sports, was it a big shock going from, softball to like a full blown contact sport? Like, oh, somebody's really trying to hurt me now. Like, even mentally, was that like a big, like, what was kind of that shift that you had to make in your mind?
Softball actually can be pretty tough like that with people sliding into each other, leading off, but yeah, not on the level. I definitely had to learn to what extent I have to stay calm. It's you someone runs into you and you're playing ball, it's different. It's you have to stay calm for an extended period of time and throughout the whole match. So but I really had some time pass before I played softball in college. I was really over it. I always wanted to box actually. And, you're younger, your parents, 18 and under, you still live with them. They were never going to let me box.
Okay, so they didn't really approve the whole fighting thing.
Yeah. So then after softball, I played music for a while actually. And I just needed something to do. You kind of like you've been doing the same thing for so long, you don't know what to do with yourself. And then I finally found boxing. You know, it took some time to, but there wasn't like a direct comparison, I guess, of the transition.
I got to feel like that. See, that kind of leads to another question. I was really gonna ask you this later on, but I'm gonna go ahead and ask it because I always think about like because growing up, I was always real big into history, right? And one of my favorite people from history, one person I always looked up to was Alexander the Great. And I know there's like an old saying of him where they say like he looked at the stars and the planets one time and he cried because he couldn't conquer them. And I kind of wonder like with fighters, do you or just athletes in general, do you feel like there's always sort of like an emptiness because you said you like you just needed something to do after softball, like you couldn't just not do anything. Like, do you feel like there's almost sort of like an emptiness there, or like you'll never really be satisfied all the way because you're always trying to conquer the next thing? Or
Yeah, that's definitely there. I've actually talked to a lot of athletes about this. I try to also, I'm sure you probably heard people in interviews say they get really sad or depressed after a fight because of that come down. Like you did the thing. And I really, through years of doing this, I'm really trying to pay attention as I go through to the hype of it all and the high, because the higher you go, the lower you go.
right,
So just like I'm trying to change. So, when I leave boxing, I will be left in a better place if I change my frame of mind and the way I approach boxing, even. You won't have that letdown, I think. So, I think approaching it more business like, more as a job. I don't know. It's tricky to explain, but yeah, I'm really thinking about that a lot, actually. I don't want to hit that
yeah,
weird mental space this time.
yeah.
you know?
I feel like that also attributes to because a lot of times like it's two different types of like you'll see a lot of fighters like for example, I was always growing up, I was a big Maidana fan. And then you see he retires and he just blows up. You know what I mean? It's almost like
Mm-hmm.
he just stopped everything. Then you look at Floyd Mayweather, he's still,
In
running
shape.
miles after the club. Yeah, like, stuff like that. So I definitely feel like, you know, like you say, kind of, the way you approach it is going to kind of determine how things are when you're done, type of thing.
Yeah, that and what Mayweather did too, and that I'm just keep training, stay involved in the gym
Yeah.
and the community. Those people that you compete with, they're your family. So,
Yeah.
just
Yeah. 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 I feel like
yes.
you said that word, the community, like you said, I feel like staying in the community is a big thing. 'Cause I can tell you, even me, like, I don't know, plan on going to be like a world champion or anything. I may do like a few amateur fights or something like that. But, even just going to the gym, they're always watching, like, Eric, what you weighing right now? You know what I mean? It's like they're always checking up on you, little things like that. So I feel like, like being in that community kind of keeps you in check almost where you feel like, okay, I
Yeah.
got to uphold a certain.
Yeah. I just I don't know how it is where you're. So I moved from Brooklyn. I'm in Atlanta now,
Yeah.
and it has taken me some time to find my kind of tribe down here, which is why it's such a, I don't know if you were looking online, but a lull in between my first couple of pro fights in this last one.
I think
But
we
I,
used to like 2 years off or something like that.
yeah, so, well, my father passed away, but also I didn't have the right team behind me. I know a lot of how to pick coaches and pick the people that are supposed to be around you from playing sports for so long. And I just knew I had yet to have a team assembled where I could do it successfully, where I trusted my corner and the things people were telling me.
Right.
But I was kind of going from gym to gym in Atlanta, and I kept seeing this coach who I kept hitting it off with him. Like, he was from New York or New Jersey and knew a bunch of the same people I had boxed with.
Right.
And then I went up to South Carolina to spar one time, and it was his gym. And so we started talking, mostly smack about being from New York, because that's what New Yorkers do. And I just was like, no, this is who I want to, I just believe in him and my team now. And I kind of chose them. I dropped everything else I was doing, and I drive to South Carolina now to train.
Okay, got you. So you commute out there to train on a regular.
Yeah, I go there 3 times a week. It's a 2-hour drive. And then I have a nice little conditioning spot here too that is a bunch of other fighters working hard. Yeah.
Okay, cool, 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 cool. Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, I definitely feel like, like you said, finding that tribe, having that community is definitely,
It's key.
I feel
It's
like it's definitely key.
everything.
Yeah, it's definitely key. Yeah, because I'm kind of the same way. I kind of just bounce around. Then again, too, I'm not really like doing it super serious like you guys are. I'm just kind of training, but
Yeah,
having that
then you
tribe,
can bounce around. Doesn't You can experience every gym that way.
right? Yeah, for sure, for sure, for sure. So let me dial back just a little bit. So like, what what was? I know you said you always wanted to fight. What was? What made you go ahead for sure, for sure? Or let me ask this: who was your first real exposure to fighting? Like, was there somebody that introduced you to a certain fighter? Did you come into it with like certain fighters that you really already kind of looked up to? Or
Well, actually, when I signed up to the day I signed up to box, okay, the only before that, of course, I knew about Mayweather, Muhammad Ali. I really looked up to Leila Ali growing up. I think any sporty female did. She was amazing. But I went, I, s- I went to the gym. I had been just running in circles around the park, and I was just like, I want to be a boxer. And then I went to the bar I had been going to, meaning like I knew everyone in there, I knew the bartender. But right after I signed up, and I was like, well, I signed up to box. And I said, but I don't know if I've ever seen a whole boxing match. So I said I should probably start watching more boxing. And he told me to watch Arturo Gatti versus Mickey Ward, all three of those. Yeah, so I went home and watched those 3 fights, and I was hooked from there. That was like the best
yeah,
thing I could have watched. I mean, if you like fighting, I'm like,
right. Yeah. That's
yeah,
a great introduction for sure, for sure.
yeah,
Definitely classic, two classic fighters, classic fights, and that's legendary stuff right there.
yeah.
Um, so kind of because you said something about the bar, so kind of I know like I said I seen before like you said you kind of had a wild side growing up, so kind of tell me about that a little bit and kind of what was the transition like going from like you said being going to bars doing this doing that. Not saying you can't do that stuff now, but what was that transition like to your new life now?
So by day I work in finance and accounting. So in New York, it's very much the lifestyle to, work till 7, 8 p.m. and then go to the bar after and have happy hour. And I was just really caught up in that lifestyle, and I was gaining weight, and I wasn't happy with it, even though it's not necessarily the wrong way, I guess, but I knew I could do better as someone who has experience competing, and it's just like, what path am I going down with this? So, but you know, I guess I hit my 30s, and that's where, I just hit a stopping point where I was like, this isn't what I want for myself. And I did start running around the park every day, like I said, and that kind of changed my mood with it too. I got a little bit, I realized, oh, this exercise makes me feel good.
Yeah.
And then I got good at running the park, and I was like, well, what am I going to do next? Okay, well, I've always wanted to box. So why not just try to have a boxing match? So then I had a boxing match, and I was hooked from that moment forward for sure.
Right. Yeah, you was looking after that. So
Yeah.
that, those kind of, early wild, 'cause I mean, I've never been to New York or anything, but anything I've ever heard about. Actually, one of my best friends back in the day when I was younger, he was from Brooklyn. And
Nice.
actually, no, I think he was from Queens. He was from New York though. He, was from New York.
One of
But
those boroughs.
yeah. He was from somewhere up there. But yeah, I remember he used to tell me about, how tough like, Brooklyn and the Bronx and stuff can be like that. Like, you know, do you feel like is that kind of like where you got the Hellfire Mel from? Is that kind of where that moniker came from?
I definitely started boxing in a tough environment, and that I, I was thrown into sparring right away. There, I see the different ways people start. And I was like, I did not start this nicely. They really were, you know, I said I wanted to be a fighter. So I guess I signed up for it too. Someone who wasn't sure, they probably wouldn't throw them into spar like that.
Right.
And just that, yes, then I guess, yeah, okay. The gym was across from Marcy Projects. Like, yes, it was a tough area, but not for me
Jay-Z,
because,
right? Isn't that where you from?
yeah,
Okay.
but, but the boxing is better, right? So I was like knew nothing, and I'm facing kids who know a lot about the sport, who are really experienced. But as far as like Brooklyn itself being tough, no, I always had my friends looking out for me. And like even on my block, like everyone knew who I was. Like,
Okay.
you know,
You had
I,
a
I
community.
yeah, I just had always good people around me to where I feel like if I yell out like help, somebody would know me.
Somebody would actually come help you. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's good because
yeah.
especially I'm from a smaller area. I'm from a small town here in Missouri, but city people are definitely different. You know what I mean? You start screaming
Socially,
like
it's different.
yeah, socially,
Yeah.
yeah, like socially definitely different. So where did the Hellfire thing come from?
Oh, so that I originally moved to upstate New York, actually, on a farm in the middle of nowhere. And we would go hunting. So, a hellfire is a type of gun trigger that's outlawed. It's called a hellfire trigger, that because of the way it shoots too fast, like automatically and quickly.
Okay.
Not
Is
the
it kind of like
person,
a
just
binary type thing?
a what?
Is it kind of like a binary trigger type of deal? Kind of something kind of like that, similar to that?
Totally not the person to, I should probably work on my
Uh,
knowledge of the actual fire trigger, because it's not a nickname. But so we at the time hunting, we're joking that that's my shooting name, and it just stuck for. I just kept using it forever.
Gotcha. Yeah, Hellfire Mel, yeah.
But it
To
kind of
me, I don't know.
fits
I
in the
think
way I box. What? Go ahead.
I was just saying that has a ring to it.
Oh yeah, well it does kind of fit the way I
Yeah, your
fight
style.
too. Yeah. So it worked
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, that's why I was gonna ask you about too, because like anything, like when I was doing my research, everything, the very first thing anything ever said about you was, oh, she has such an aggressive style, and all this. Like, where where do you feel like that comes from? Like, do you feel like it's something like kind of internal, or
Yeah, I've always been. I was just talking about this the other day when I played basketball. I would always almost fall out of the game. I've always been like that.
yeah,
And even in starting to, obviously I've been in it years now. I know how to box, but in starting, I just would try to fight and get in a brawl. Yeah. So yeah, I've just always been like that. So
Yeah,
you learn about yourself in combat, right?
yeah, big time for sure. For sure.
Yeah, I don't
But
know
yeah,
why
that's
I'm
one thing
like
I
that.
love about it because just I feel like almost any sport really, you really get to see, we live in a world, social media, like people get to pretend so much, but when you
Hmm.
step in that ring or that cage, there is no pretending. Like, you either are or you are, it's one of the two, and if you don't know, you're gonna find out real quick, you know.
Yeah, and the Hellfire too. I thought of when you wrote to me with the name of your podcast, Not Popular.
Mm.
Uh, I because when you're going through hell, keep going. Like I just want to remind people too that it's not easy. Like getting in shape, changing, doing all this stuff is not easy to do. So I guess that became part of it later on, but not how it started.
Yeah, yeah, 'cause, that's kind of the whole thing behind not popular. It's like I say, it's a not popular lifestyle. Like I'm sure, I mean, you got into it a little later in life, but I'm sure there's probably been a lot of things you probably missed out on, and things
Yeah.
you have to go through, just living this type of lifestyle. I mean, you have to diet, cut weight, you have to get mentally prepared, like everything.
I mean, all that, but I remember saying to my trainer, like, I don't have any friends anymore. And he's like, you'll make new friends because all the people I was just being a little baby, obviously, but
Yeah,
I have friends. But all the people I was hanging out with, at the bar, nobody ever wanted to come to the gym with me or come run with me. And I maybe have one friend from that too, from that scenario now of however many. It just, when you change, when you're changing yourself and working on yourself, yeah, you lose people. That's how it goes sometimes.
yeah, for sure. And that's something I ask everybody like that I interview with, like, do you feel like when you are making these changes with the not popular lifestyle, like, was there a lot of like resistance from people around you, or were people pretty understanding of it? Like, okay, I see her vision, I see what she's trying to do, even though that's not what I'm trying to do. I see what she's trying to do. Or was there like a lot of kickback from it? Like, kind of what was that like?
I would say both. Like the real ones, that you just learn who your friends actually are through changing because the real friends, even though, yeah, they didn't want to go become be involved, obviously, but they're still my friends. They still will be the first to root for me or come to my fights or do whatever. It's just like I guess Melody's doing this now. I guess we're going to
Yeah,
boxing matches.
yeah, I'm on board. Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, but and then some I definitely lost or just acted weird, and I could feel that, and I didn't want to be around them either. And good, let it weed itself out. Is what
I
I
feel like
say
that's just
now.
part of growing up, though. That's just a part of your development as a person. I feel like if people just outgrow each other, it is what it is. Sometimes, some people, yeah, you're
Yeah,
gonna have these people from the sandbox, but we outgrow each other. It just is what it is. It's all about. I feel like it's all about how you handle it. You know.
yeah, it is, and it's not a lot. I didn't want that life that I was living at that moment for myself anymore. So what can you do if they're a part of it? You don't want
Yeah,
to
right.
lose people, but
Yeah. One of those things. It's one of those things. I do want to dial back just a little bit though, because I did have a question about, because with that aggressive style you have, I know a lot of men, even me sometimes, even just in sparring and stuff like that, or smokers I've been in, like a lot of men kind of go into fights with that mentality, like you have to kill me. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people have
yeah.
that kind of mentality, is it kind of the same, female and, like, is it kind of the same for you? Is it a little bit harder to tap into that, because men, I feel like it's a little more natural for us, because, we have testosterone. We just kind
Hmm.
of naturally want to be the better guy, generally, whether it's financially, whatever, like we just always want to be the better guy,
Yeah.
but women, how is it like for you?
I would say at first, it does take some time to learn where you mentally need to put yourself. Because, yeah, if I'm being honest, my first match, you think, okay, I'm going to fight now. But then you're in the ring. It's like, oh, she hit me. And then, like, when the first punch landed, it snapped me into that mode. I'm like, okay, I better fight back, you know?
Yeah.
But now it's been years, and also just the fight of being a female fighter, of getting people to train you in the gym and not take advantage or whatever, that there's a lot of obstacles. So now, yeah, I'm ready to fight now because it's just, by now I have a little bit of a chip on my shoulder. I deserve this. I guess the same, like the competitive level of wanting to be on top that you mentioned.
Right.
I have it
And
more
that
now.
kind of right. Yeah, that kind of leads into like really two other questions that I have for you because I ask every female fighter like, what is it like being a female in such a predominantly like a male sport? You know what I mean? Like, what is it? Because even the other day, I was asking me, she was like, how do you watch these women fight? Some of my favorite fighters are women, but I will be honest, even when I'm watching women's fights, some of my favorite fighters, Lisa Baumgartner, Valentina Shevchenko, there's a lot of women fighters I'm a big fan of, but it doesn't feel the same watching a woman get flatlined as it does a man. Like if I see a guy get knocked
Yes,
out, oh, the female, I'm like, man, like so
I know
how
what
do
you
you
mean.
deal with, all the criticisms and just navigating this whole world, navigating this community being a female?
Well, that is a good example of, again, of how I met my trainer, because I was having a lot of problems. If a trainer, most trainers haven't trained a female that actually wants to fight. And the problem I was having was people not pushing me hard enough. Like, no, these girls are really going to hit me. They hit harder than some of the dudes. I'm a middle-weight, so we're not light. It's
Right.
like I gotta
Yeah.
fight. So my trainer, I went with that day that I went to spar and I landed in his gym. He was like, push her. And just saying, I could tell he recognized me as a fighter as opposed to just being a female trying to box. I don't know how to word that, but yeah, finding somebody that knows how to train you is really hard. It's the biggest challenge, I would say.
Yeah, so you and your coach have, it sounds like you guys have a lot of good chemistry. Like you guys really understand each other and you know what you're trying to do and you know just your personalities in general.
Yeah. And just he's trained a female before. There was nobody
Right.
down here that had really. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. So he kind of knew how to kind of approach it a little bit then. So
Yeah.
with you being a female and a male, because I kind of wonder like being a female, in a predominantly male sport, it's already kind of difficult enough. Do you feel like it's more pressure on you, especially since you're actually starting to like you actually kind of have some success in the sport. You know what I mean? Like, do you feel like there's more pressure on you? Like you have more to prove? Like,
Uh well, yeah. Yes. I'd be lying if I said otherwise, because now, I've been in Atlanta a few years. So when I moved to Atlanta, I I would say my answer would have been no. But when I moved, I was number 4 in the nation. I had just come out of Olympic trials for boxing. I did a lot really fast.
yeah,
And I'm in gyms down here with people that have never been in national, have never done those things. And I kind of felt like I wasn't getting the respect I deserved for the things I had done. And it really humbled me. I had to go on a journey to kind of prove myself. And I think I still am in the context of Atlanta versus New York. I was pretty settled up there. So, yeah, it has created a little bit of chip on my shoulder for the people that didn't want to train put that time in training me, going traveling with me to go to fights when they're doing it for the guys.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do. I keep saying I'm going to prove my coaches right as opposed to prove the other people wrong, but it's both. Let's be real. Yeah. I'm just trying to be positive.
Yeah. Nah, I feel that. So, and before I move on, you know, what was it like, like you say, you started, really late, in boxing terms, you started real late, but, just for you to make it even to the Olympic trials, that's a big deal. That's something a lot of people don't even ever get to that, so was that kind of the moment that you knew for sure, like, hey, look, I can do this, or did you kind of always know?
I definitely already had a feeling. I've always had this weird serendipity in my path through boxing, I guess you would say. But well, first of all, I didn't enjoy, I was way too nervous because it was 0 to 100. Like, I wish I would have stopped to smell the roses a little bit. But it did, so I made it to the semifinals. Yeah, I did. It just reinforced what I already knew, I guess you would say. I knew I was going to keep going.
Gotcha. Cool. So, I was kind of asking you about, like, do you feel pressure and feel like you have something to prove, and that kind of leads me into, because I saw you say in one of your interviews that you're like a real big like creative. And I know you said like, you did photography and stuff like that. So obviously, you have like a creative side and everything. So
Mhm.
how do you balance that with the, like, okay, you got this creative, photographer, because you're a musician too, right?
I, yeah, I don't, I'm full on, I'm in training camp right now. That's what I'm doing. But my dad was a musician and I've always played guitar and stuff.
Gotcha. Is that kind of like almost like a safe space from for you, like from boxing? Like, you're kind of like, because you're almost kind of like taking your mind into like a chaotic place a little bit, but like, is that almost kind of like a safe space for you, or almost like a therapeutic type of thing for you? Or is it just something you just like doing?
I, yeah, I do. So find like, in, I just started a YouTube and Instagram and I have found little nuggets of creativity within boxing. And I really like that element of it. It is kind of, I don't know. Yeah, it makes me happy to do it. I've done photography, I've shot other people, other boxers. I'm, that's just something that is a seed that I'm building on as I fight, and I'll kind of see where it goes. Maybe that's the after boxing thing is I just end up doing promotional material for fighters or but yeah, I really like that side of it too. I don't know what it's going to be yet.
Like, yeah, I got you. I feel like most creatives, like, real creatives, like, there's so many different things you're interested in and, kind of want to, dip your fingers into.
Yeah.
You may not know exactly, what it is. Like, do you feel like, I think it's always, do you feel like, because I know you just said, you started a YouTube and all that type of stuff. So are you trying to use that creative side to like help build your brand? Like, you know what I mean? Because, boxing is a business, everything is a business. But boxing is a business. Floyd Mayweather, he's more than just Floyd Mayweather. He's a brand. He's a
Yeah.
boxing brand. You know what I mean? Like, so like, are you trying to use that side to help build?
Definitely. That's what I was going to say that I feel like to be a professional fighter of any sorts nowadays, you actually have to low key start a media company too. And people will say, no, I just need to be really good. Like, no, you eventually are going to have someone do it for you, or you could do it. Me, I for where I I know some of the other females, obviously I pay attention, aren't posting at all, but I didn't come from a place where I was on the Olympic team or I'm really starting from scratch. So it's the best way to promote myself too and to kind of, they go hand in hand. I want to show promoters that I will promote your fight, that you're going to get some bang for your buck of having me on your card.
Right.
So yeah, it's really, it does, you kind of have to nowadays with social media, but
Right. Yeah.
as long as it doesn't take away from my training, that's fine. I keep a really tight schedule because of that, just to make sure I don't, I check all the boxes on all fronts, I
Right.
guess.
Right, right, yeah. See, that's why, 'cause I was telling somebody the other day, like, because we were kind of having a similar conversation, and I'm like, man, you look at some people, like, like for me, like MMA, you look at like Conor McGregor, who he's probably the biggest to do it so far in terms of like, his pay-per-views and things like that. When you see him, he's really like you said, kind of like his own little media company. Even in the beginning, like he had the skill, but he also had everything else to match. So, it's almost like all the stars aligned, and he just had everything it took, from the personality, like he was saying, hey, I'm gonna knock him out in the first round, and he was knocking people out in the first round, like stuff like that. Muhammad Ali, like these people, like they really were, like you said, they were like their own little media companies, on top of being great fighters. On top of that,
Yeah. And also the thing that made it more, at first I was doing it because my trainer told me to, at the time told me to, you have to promote yourself, yada, yada. But now being professional, there's A side, there's B side to every fight. And I don't want to let a judge dictate my career, a bad judge. Some are good, some are bad.
yeah, yeah,
You know, I've kind of, so I had a loss. I have a loss on my record. I don't think it says every fighter, right? But like when I lost, the point is, I thought it was the end of the world. And no, it's not. You can't let a judge decide what your career is going to be. So the media helps with that, helps you voice your own self and your own hard work outside of what you know,
yeah.
a judge is judging.
Yeah, we've definitely seen, especially in boxing, there's so much politics that goes into boxing.
Yeah, it's
We've
very
seen a lot of
political.
crazy. I'll never forget Triple G and Canelo one. I know everybody has their different opinions, but to me, it's like, come on, bro. Like, I was like, there was no way that was a draw. I just things like that. You see
Yeah.
stuff like that way too often, I feel like.
Yeah. And, you know, look at like, I hate to bring him up, but Ryan Garcia, how he just cut, it doesn't matter what he does, I believe as long as I show up and I fight and I put on a good fight, that will speak for itself to some degree, especially if you have the promotion around you to show that you're a good fighter. I think, real recognize real, so to say. Someone will be
Right,
like,
exactly. Mhm.
someone will see it. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So, we can go ahead and before we wrap up, I do want to ask real quick, you were talking about your fight coming up July 25th. So,
Mhm.
who's the opponent? What's the location? What's the one-on-one on that?
We have some opponents in mind, but we're still waiting to, lock that opponent in. But the fight is supposed to be, I'm in camp for it, and it's July 25th in Atlanta, which is my hometown now. And I'm very excited to be fighting in Atlanta. All my friends. Yeah.
Yeah, right on. Cool, cool, cool. So what's your mind state like right now? Like, what do how you feeling right now?
I feel good. Like I said, I've got this new team, and this is our first full camp together, which is, I'm learning so much right now. So I don't know, I'm feeling pretty unstoppable, just that I'm better than I've ever been and I keep improving. So yeah, it's a really exciting time for me actually.
Okay, yeah, right on. That's what we like to hear. So, you know, yeah, like I said, Melody, I really appreciate you, coming on, talking to me and everything. Real quick, do you want to two things, I want you to kind of, shout out your socials, where everybody can find you and things like that. And I also kind of want you to, just any young person or just anybody that sees this interview, what do you want them to get from it? What do you want them to get from you and your story?
Oh man. Well, okay, we'll start with the social media. Is Melody Popravak, my name on the screen for everything, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all the places. And Man, the kids, I I hope I'm an example to all the kids I'm around just to show them that there's no, I people will come to me and be like, I'm naturally talented or no, there's no you have to work hard. That
Yeah.
there's no escaping the hard work. You can work smart and hard, but I just want people to not be afraid to work hard, to really believe they can work hard and succeed and show that it pays off. So that's the message I try to convey these days.
Okay, cool, cool. I like that. I like that. Well, like I said, Melody, I really appreciate you coming on talking to me. And like I said, I'm definitely gonna be watching. I definitely am excited, to watch your story unfold because I like your story, so I'm definitely excited to see everything unfold. But like I said, thank you for coming to talk to me.
Thanks for
Um,
having me.
yes, ma'am. And real quick, let me hold on, I'm gonna stop recording real quick.
Okay.
But I did